Is it just the button?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First up are the minutes for October 21. I have no amendments.
Finally getting good at this.
I'll make a motion for those minutes.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I'm an aye. Unanimous acceptance as written. Committee reports, first up, Select Board Jen.
I don't think I have any major updates from last week. I see the fire update is on here, Jack.
And I was just curious if anything had
That's
progressed in that.
tomorrow night at our meeting. We're having Chief Byrd come to our meeting, and one of the topics to discuss is the succession planning and sustainability planning for that, for the fire department. So stay tuned on
Okay.
that topic.
Okay. Is there anything on the tax rate that you want to mention?
We're going to sign the official tax rate tomorrow night. The tax rate that we discussed last week has been updated to DRA, and they've given us the final actual numbers, which includes like some small rounding changes that they make. But overall, I don't know if folks were aware of the conversation that we had, that the tax rate, the municipal tax rate, is going to go up significantly this year compared to last year, mostly because of the fact that last year was an anomaly and that we had a very large fund balance, mostly because of COVID factors and unfilled positions. So we were able to actually drop taxes by almost 10% last year, which is like almost never happens in the town. And we do not have that same sort of fund balance this year. We have sort of our typical fund balance. And so municipal taxes will go up. School taxes actually are not going up all that much this year. And it's kind of a swap from last year, where school went up and municipal went down. This year, it's kind of a swap, and the overall tax increase looks to be about 7% for the overall tax rate. So we will let you know, but that will be officially signed tomorrow night. And then tax bills will go out shortly thereafter, due in early December.
Will the numbers stay the same as you arrived at last week?
Yes, the percentage, like the percentage withhold that we use to pay down taxes, that number will stay the same.
And so was it 2517? Is that where we end up?
Yes, that's the one that I just sent to you earlier today.
Yep.
I think 2517 sounds right. Yes.
Okay.
It was the town rate was 5.25, which gives us an overall rate of 2517.
Okay, the other thing I had was we're going to be doing on November 11th a walk through at the Historical Society.
Yes.
I don't know if the Select Board has already done that or not, but they're certainly welcome to join us at that time because Select Board will have something to say about what is allocated to the Grange, the maintenance.
Sure, I can certainly bring that up tomorrow night, an invitation to any board members. I don't think the board had been invited or come to our other site walks throughout the
They're
year.
public. The site walks and
Right.
our meetings are totally public.
Correct,
So
yeah.
anybody can come.
Yep.
But it might be an opportunity to respond to, ask questions or whatever of basically of Dexter.
Yep.
Do we know what the tax base is?
Meaning the valuation
Yeah.
for this year? Yes, it went up about, I don't know, 15 million or so. It was $742,919,892 last year, and it is $756,957,876. So it went up about 14 million from last year to this year for total assessment with utilities.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
Yep.
And Brian, anything happening at school?
Yes, I still owe you two items that I have not yet had a chance to ask for. I tried to find census data on my own online for the Swayze School, could not find that. I did learn at the SAU meeting, after our meeting last week, that there was a decline in 30 students across all 12 schools from last year to this year in the SAU.
I didn't hear that.
Across all 12 schools in the SAU, there was a decline in 30 students from last year to this year. So considering the number of students overall, relatively flat, but a slight decline. But I'll get the Swayze specific figures for you. The SAU passed its budget last week. There was a slight increase from the number presented before to increase some legal expenses for responding to RSA 91A requests, and a slight increase in available funds for merit increases, but that latter increase was a $77,800 increase to the total budget. So still anticipate a decrease in contribution on the Swayze portion of the bill, again, because of changes in valuations in other towns.
Do you have the total of that budget, Brian?
So the total budget is $3,425,176 for the SAU administration.
Is there a place online where that would be accessible?
I would suspect the SAU 16 website.
Okay.
Because all the meeting materials and minutes and so forth will be posted there. And the Swayze School Board is going to do the first draft of its budget at next week's meeting. So we'll meet on Monday the 4th, and we'll get our first crack at the budget prepared by the central office for 2025.
That being Swayze's budget?
Swayze's budget, yes.
Okay.
And I haven't seen the materials yet, so I don't know. I don't have a sense of what that's going to look like.
Okay, all set?
All set?
Thank you. Okay, budgets. First up, let's go with conservation. Becky? You can sit over here if you want, and just let us know what you want us to know here, just initially.
Okay, I know you've all received an update from Jen, from the town with the new line items that have been added to the conservation budget. You can see it at the bottom. We are level funded except for a $1 increase to cover a placeholder for legal. But the four categories that have been added as line items are legal, professional services, travel mileage, and land maintenance. So we adjusted some figures and came up with the level funding. As of 10/31/24, when all the receipts that we've submitted for payment are added to this year actual, we will be at 65% expenditures, about $8,042.80, and anticipate that by the end of 12/31, we will be up around 78 or 80% and may hold back a couple thousand, encumber a couple of thousand, the balance for contracts that we may sign tomorrow. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The budget has pretty much been stable for the last few years. We've decreased since 2019 from about 19,000 down to the 12,000. We continue to do our own monitoring of 20 properties, which is a savings of about $35,000 to $4,000 for the town. And we've started that process. So you can see under audit expense, we have just $1. That's where we've moved the monitoring expense. So pretty diligent in how we spend our budget. This will be the first year we probably will be very close to spending the full amount because of what's going on with easements and spreading the word to people and doing some work on a couple of properties that need some work.
So you're getting volunteers to do the
monitoring.
easement monitoring?
Yes, Liz McNaughton is in charge of that. She's our land manager. And last year she recruited more than a handful of volunteers to walk the properties. It takes about an hour to walk these properties. And weather that's not always clement, challenging with cold or snow on the ground. So she has a good group of people who will do this work. So it's a real savings for the town.
And Becky, remind me the difference between the 301 line, the audit expense, and the easement monitoring, because both of those you guys cut down significantly.
Right. The audit expense was there when I inherited this
Yep,
position, so
I
I'm
remember.
not really sure. And the easement monitoring, we dropped to 100
Yep.
and put the money into professional services where we
Okay.
hope to have the
But you kind of
consultants
lump
on it.
those all
Yes.
together as
Yeah.
easement management.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
I thought you put the audit expense at $1 because you just didn't want to deal with any disruptions from the auditors, so.
It's been recommended to save the place in the budget in case, just like we have wages and secretarial wages and FICA, because in previous years, previous chairs have used secretarial support for the work that we're doing on our own. That's another savings.
Can I make a comment? So I happen to be on the Conservation Commission also, and when we discussed the budget, it came in at a much higher rate, and the commission was diligent in not having that happen and trying to have a level funded budget. So I just want to express our appreciation for that.
Definitely. We joked about the fact that we increased it by $1. Becky said, darn,
Oh,
I
I
really
I
I
fought
wanted
that.
it to be level
Yes.
funded.
Yes.
Take it out of
As
somewhere
close
else.
to level as possible.
And the select board approved this last week, I believe, at your meeting. Rick.
Correct, for
Yes.
12704.
Yeah.
And the dues are for what purpose?
We are members of two organizations, the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions, which I have used an incredible amount this year for advice and guidance and materials. And the other is the Exeter Squamscott Local River Authority.
Mhm.
Each are $300. We have received a lot of value out of the NHACC, an incredible amount of value. And actually, three of us are going to the annual meeting on Saturday. And there's a variety, I think it's 12 workshops you can choose from, all pertinent topics that we're going to learn about and use that information in the coming year.
And is conservation having any input to the dam situation?
At this point, we haven't heard any more about that. Eric Turr and Jessica Balukas are on the Exeter River Local Authority Committee. And I'm in touch with Eric on a fairly regular basis. I haven't heard anything more, whether they're going to apply for another grant. I'm not sure at this
Right,
point.
it's a little bit stalled because after not receiving the grant, they have to go to their voters in the spring.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
And yeah, because
Okay.
they would have no way to fund it without going to the voters and
Okay.
asking for funding.
Land maintenance, where is that land located? Or is it more than one land?
It's more than one land. I'm anticipating, for example, well, right now, we have a volunteer who's mowing the Stevens Field, and he's charging us only for gasoline. He does this on his own, and he will be doing this monthly and do the final mowing of the entire field. He's been doing the trails all summer, the entire mowing of the field at the end of this month, depending on weather. And he has to judge when it's good to go there. So we anticipate there will be that kind of expense on some properties. I also know that there's been a request for a culvert replacement or some sort of bridge in the other Stevens Field, the north field. I get confused, the north and the south field. We might want to do something there because anyone who takes equipment into those fields has to manipulate and back up because there's a swale where the culvert washed away. And also the gate that leads to the Hague Road property, the posts are rotted, so we might have to get new posts and maybe have buildings, highway department put that in, but we'll have to pay for the materials. So there are some minor things that need to happen next year that I can anticipate.
So both those fields are being, the upper one and the lower one are
Requires some work.
okay. And so that will be done this fall then, basically, or?
The mowing will be done this fall in the upper field, south field, the big hayfield. We're waiting to have a contract before the select board tomorrow night to do some work next month on the lower field because our current volunteer cannot use his equipment to get close enough to the perimeter of either of these fields because of overhanging limbs, fallen trees, shrubs. So we have a contract out for someone to do that work, which is dangerous for volunteers to do. And I'd already spoken to Deb Briscoe, who's chair of the Trails Committee, and said she didn't think they could pull together a group that would do that. So we hope that we can do that. So that lower field will be prepared for next year so the volunteer can mow the entire field without an equipment issue. And we hope to get a grant to do that on the upper field to do the perimeter and the clearing up of the dead trees so that one can be mowed. We're going to alternate mowing the fields. So we're preparing for next year with the lower field, and next year we'll do the upper field.
So if we get enough snow this winter, it'll be good for cross-country skiing there.
It will, and Bob, the volunteer has been great about keeping the trails cleared, so that's a nice wide swath through the upper field and lower field, so yes,
great.
good cross-country. Oh, and I believe that the Woodmans have started to remove the fence when we were out there last week.
Oh, good.
Yeah, looking at, with Kevin, with the contractor who's gonna do the cutting, there were some posts that were missing and some wire that's already gone. So the family may be doing some things to that.
Any other questions or comments? So the number we're looking at is $12,704.
Yep,
Is there a motion?
Make the motion.
A second?
Second.
Oh.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. Motion
Thank you.
passes.
thank you very much.
Thank you. You want to stay on for welfare?
Might as well. I didn't, I'm not a part of any of the welfare decisions that are made by the welfare director.
Correct.
My,
Becky just sort of is, she's now in the welfare budget
yes.
with just one online item.
Regional Associations Committee was established in 2019 as a way to provide an equitable way for applications to the town of Brentwood to be evaluated. So the committee's been in place since 2019. Each year we review the applications that come in and make decisions based on information in their applications as well as a little research. And for the first 3 years, our budget was $17,500, and we raised it to $18,000 last year for this 2024. The decisions that we made to 6 organizations, we distributed $17,357. We're leaving $500 in there just in case something last minute comes in, and we're asking for the same amount for fiscal year 2025. The applications are due October 31. I have 4 so far, and there's no increase in the amounts that they've been asking for. So I'm very comfortable with the $18,000 for what I've seen already coming in. And if you'd like to see this was in the town's annual report, but if you'd like a copy of how we allocated the funds, I can distribute that as well.
I'll take that.
And the rest of the budget is just level funded for the welfare director and for direct assistance payments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, that's okay, I've seen.
We're a committee of 5. We've just, one person retired last spring for personal reasons, and we just have moved an alternate to a full position, and we have an alternate as well to fill in case there's someone who can't attend our meeting. We meet after all the applications are processed. Sometimes it's end of November, sometimes it's January, depending on people's calendars. So we meet once a year.
Questions, comments from the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
So there's been a motion and a second for $25,407. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
And I'm an aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the cemetery here? Jim, what would you like us to know?
First of all, I just want to let you know, Joyce Eagle is also here, our superintendent, so if you have any questions, she's the one who knows everything. I'm just the budget guy, I guess. Honestly, it's pretty straightforward. All of the FICA, Medicare, the retirement was all directly from the town administrator's budget email. We have a 3% COLA increase to the superintendent's hourly rate. Superintendent works 6 hours a week on behalf of the cemetery trustees. There's a 1.76% merit increase based on the performance appraisal that the trustees, we used the town performance appraisal worksheet, and she did her own self-assessment, and we all reviewed it together. So that 1.76 comes from that her 4.4 out of 5 performance appraisal. And all other non-labor related line items remain the same as last year in 2024. The only thing that I'll call to your attention and what's interesting is it doesn't really show up on the summary that the town administrator puts out, because all the wages get lumped together in the same line. But there was actually a $650 clerical stipend that was always in the cemetery budget. And it was in addition to the superintendent's salary. We voted this year to move that line item in our budget to $1, just to keep the stipend there in case in the future. What this was actually, what I found out was at one time there was a clerical person who just did I guess it would be called the indoor cemetery work, and that person was actually paid by a stipend. And then there was the outdoor work that was done by the superintendent, and that was an hourly rate. Joyce has been doing both for, well, at least the time I've been involved. And this year we decided to, instead of having the stipend paid and then somebody give that money to Joyce, we just rolled it. So this year, her hourly rate is increasing by, and it's on my spreadsheet, by $2.08 to make up for that. So now that her salary will actually include that $650. And like I said, in the future, if we ever go back to that model where we have 2 people, we can always change it, but anyways, if you go through all of the numbers we had, our total budget for 2025 goes up $372 roughly, or for a total of $14,739.92. If you go down through, like I said, what you have in your packet, the total salary, the 9,802 is exactly what is on my spreadsheet. The FICA and Medicare come out to be $750. Again, it's just rounding where some of these numbers are a little bit off. And then the total retirement on your sheet shows $1,288. And again, the total budget on your sheet shows 14741, which is, again, it's just rounding that it's off from mine, so. Any questions on the budget at all?
So if it's a rounding situation, I guess I would be inclined to go with the 14,741.
Yeah, I agree. I would just go with what you have in your packet.
The select board actually voted on 14,740 because that matched the cemetery's
Good.
Sheet
that-
before rounding, so it's just
Is
off
that how
by
you
one.
did it? Yeah.
Yeah,
I would do-
that's
then I
what
would
we
do-
approved.
Do exactly the
Yeah,
same.
we basically rounded.
Yeah,
here.
do the same. It's just rounding.
And we'll go with the 14,740. Any
17.
discussion for the cemetery at 14,740? Comments, questions?
My only question is just, we don't have the number of like what was spent per year, but it looks like since everything's level funded, are we thinking that we're gonna spend all
Yes.
of that? So it'd be roughly.
Pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to be pretty close. Yeah,
Okay.
there's nothing that yeah, we're going to be pretty close.
Okay. No, that was just my question,
Yeah,
is
good one.
some of the things didn't have the amount spent this year.
Okay, is there a motion for 14,740?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
We have a motion and a second.
For discussion, just Kat, to answer your question,
Yeah.
last full fiscal year, they spent 97% of their budget.
Okay, perfect.
They had $415 left.
Cool.
So I'm trying to get in the habit of giving the attendees a chance to comment, the public a chance to comment before we actually vote.
Uh-oh. You're going to let Becky ask me a question? Or Doug?
It's the chair's rules.
Somebody needs to remind me of this. So if there's any further comments from the, okay. All in favor for cemetery of $14,740?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm a nay. Reason being, the COLA increase, I myself personally this year am going to not support any COLA increases over 2.5%. That is what the Social Security increase is going to be, and that's what I will support.
Okay.
And I'm an aye. So a motion passes with one nay.
And just as a side note, and the superintendent and I wanted to mention to the budget committee, we gave a presentation this past month to, we started with conservation, then the planning, and then we did it to the select board, talking about the need for a new cemetery in the town. And rather than give the full presentation here, I just wanted to give you, kind of a heads up like everybody else, that we roughly have 10 years left remaining in our cemetery. And, by RSA, we must offer a place to bury in town. So at this point, I don't really have anything specific for the budget committee because we don't have any real numbers yet. All we're doing at this point is getting word out and educating folks, everybody, that we're going to need a new cemetery. And we're looking at properties that the town already owns in hopes that we could, use that and, save money and get a good location. And then once we do find that property, probably, I would say, by spring, we should have something pointed out. And then I would think it would be up to the trustees we'd probably have to come to the town, because we don't have budget for it, but we're going to need somebody to go out and just evaluate that property to make sure that it can be a cemetery, ledge, this and that. So, but I don't have any hard numbers to give you at this point, but I just wanted to make you aware that that is something that we're going to be dealing with in the next couple of years.
Okay. Okay. If that's everything, I just want to say thank you for the nicely laid out numbers, and that was well-presented information from the trustees, and for the nicely kept cemetery by the superintendent.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thank you, everyone.
Next up is information systems and,
I can present that.
good.
So information systems, this is mostly made up of all of our support services and electronic and record-keeping services. Our managed support are Microsoft 365 programs, QuickBooks, et cetera. So most of those fall under the first line hardware support. Software support is our payroll and AP software called BMSI. It's dog interware that we use for dogs. It's the town clerk and assessing software. So most of these increases are contractual increases in all those programs that we use to run the town. There's no significant cost right now for the website because when we put the new website up, that was paid, I think we paid a 5-year plan. So we will see that remain at $1 until we get at the end of that contract. And then internet service is going up a little bit. That's Comcast and Fidium. General supplies is thumb drives and sort of small IT equipment. And then the equipment purchase is for the lease. I believe this is for the lease on our big printer fax machine that we have in this building. This does not include any replacement costs of computers, printers, monitors, et cetera, that we own because we have a separate capital reserve fund for hardware that those come out of. Just to give the BudCom a heads up, Block 5 has let us know that we have a relatively high number of computers that will need to be replaced in the coming years. And so we'll be having to tap into that capital reserve fund over the next few years to replace some aging out hardware that we have. But that's separate from this budget, obviously. And if anyone has questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Any idea when the new internet service would be in place?
I know the contract was just finalized maybe 2-3 weeks ago, so I have not heard the next steps yet, but hopefully soon.
Just when they can physically do it then?
I'm
or
assuming so.
scheduling?
I'm not really sure. I think Letty was following up with them on that, so maybe she'll give us an update tomorrow night.
Okay.
You had talked about BMSI not
Yes.
supporting anymore.
Correct.
Is this with an expectation that that software is going to be replaced, or is that going to be something completely different?
So yes, I think the expectation of the select board is that we have to replace BMSI, and that has been the plan for the past 2 years or so. The reason why I don't think it's going to have a big budgetary change here is that we have a separate capital reserve fund for software that has, I believe, $112,000 in it that it's already been set aside and raised by the taxpayers to allow us to do that upgrade. So that would come out of a reserve fund rather than directly out of the budget to do those transition costs. And Daphne's actually coming to the select board tomorrow night to discuss switching over her town clerk software to Avatar, and that is factored into the second software support line here.
And the BMSI, you said you also have QuickBooks, so what is this? Is this just accounting?
I think the
software?
QuickBooks there's a couple of groups of people who write checks that don't come out of taxpayer funds. So those are handled differently, and I
So
think
like
that's
rec or something?
rec, and I think there's a couple people. I think sometimes planning does some checks that don't come out of taxpayer funds. So there's a few different things that they use QuickBooks for, and that's being streamlined right now. But BMSI does the fund management, payroll, AP, basic tax management. So when we upgrade, we'll be looking for a software bundle that does all of those things and then talks to the town clerk software as well. So we're going to try to figure out what's the best option for the town sometime in the next couple of months as we get through this budget season.
The hardware support is, that increase is a new contract? Is that what?
No, I think that's ongoing. A lot of that is Block 5 that manages all our devices and servers. And some of that, like I said, is I think Microsoft support. I think the email, the The amount that we pay for town emails, I think, is in that line item as well. So all those recurring yearly costs are in that line item.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Is there a motion for $9,520 for information systems?
That would be
That's
nice,
funny.
but that's the increase.
That's the increase. Yes,
I was
I'll
like,
vote for
that's
that.
That sounds great, Jack.
Since that might not be a good number, we'll try $84,842. It was just an attempt to save a little something.
Thank you. You're fiscally minded. We like that.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion reluctantly because 9,000 numbers sound great.
And a second?
I'll second.
Public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
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 And I'm an aye. Motion carries.
Now we got the big one.
Budget Committee. Requesting $500. Hopefully at some point, our secretary will accept her compensation.
You can always choose a new secretary. You really want to spend that money.
It's going to stay in the budget. Questions, comments? Is there a motion for $500 for the Budget Committee?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
Public comment?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Thank you. That'll be it for budgets. I think there's nothing further to be said on announcement for the public hearing. The Sketches of Brentwood is now posted after about 2 hours of work. It's posted on our website, both the summary and the original data. And in that process, I learned that we can only upload PDFs and that PowerPoints cannot be uploaded. Fine, I learned that from Letty late in the process.
Now we know.
Now we know. So the summary is an attempt to respond to Michelle's question a couple of meetings ago, which was, what's the point? And the original point for me was, what can we learn from our neighbors? And once I got into the numbers, I think it's more, what did we learn about ourselves? And to me, there was a lot about ourselves that's learned and laid out in the summary. And for those that are interested, I encourage you to read the summary first before you look at the more detailed formal report. We've talked about fire department. We probably don't know anything more about municipal buildings and bond discussions, but there is a meeting.
Tomorrow. There's a meeting tomorrow. Yep, publicly open meeting at 1:30.
Yeah. Beyond that, anybody have anything further to be discussed? Our next meeting will be a site visit to the Historical Society's Grange Hall on November 11th at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. Any further public comments? Public comment is open and closed. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, Doug.
In the future, when you're done, go to grade control, hit that little camera button.
Is that the one you were looking for? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. And then as long as that goes off and that stops flashing, you're good. This is still moving because the microphone